Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Janzeb. I'm working as an intervention neurologist at Park Emirates Military Hospital. So I'll be sharing my experience, 2 years experience of running a comprehensive stroke center. So, so the outline of presentation is as follows. I'll be discussing briefly the composition of an Army Stroke Center, how our stroke teams work, and I'll be discussing few cases of mechanical thrombectomy and the outcomes of mechanical thrombectomy that we have done in the last 2 years. So Makabat Military Hospital, it became a comprehensive stroke center in June 1919. And ever since then, we have been providing 24/7 stroke services to all patients that come to our emergency. We have an hyperacute stroke ward. We have 3 cath lab suites, 2 biplane angiography and 1 monoplane angiography. We have a CT scanner. We are recently installing a 640 slice automated software with an automated software to determine the core and penumbra. Presently, we're doing CT perfusion studies on 128 size CT. We have a 3 Tesla MRI, which is associated with the stroke center, post-cath ward, and a dedicated neurocritical care setup. We have 2 teams which work 24/7. In each team, it's composed of an intervention neurologist, radiologist, anesthetist, cath nurse, 3 IR techs, 2 nursing assistant, and the most important person is a stroke coordinator. The moment the patient lands at the ER, the first call is given to a stroke coordinator, and then he coordinates all the movement of the stroke, going from the ER to the CT scan to the stroke unit and finally to the cath lab. So I'll be focusing purely on mechanical thrombectomy cases that we have done. I've selected a few to give an overview of what mechanical thrombectomy is and what you are upheld once you do a first angiogram and what you find out what the patient has. So most of the time it's like everyone believes it's MC occlusion M1, but we have cases of M1, M2 occlusion, basilar thrombosis. We have cases of tandem occlusion, which is combine both MC as well as carotid involvement. And I'll be discussing a case of extensive CVST in which we did venous thrombolysis and thrombectomy. So this is the first case. A young male is a cadet. He presented, interestingly, all of our patients, none of them reported in TPA window, the one that I'm going to discuss today. And he presented with 4.5 hours of weakness of left upper and lower limb. Past medical history was significant for membranous glomerulonephritis, and he was on rivaroxaban. His GCS was 15/15, NHS score was 12. So this is the video which was made on the cath table while he was being prepared for the procedure. So as you can see, he's got left facial nerve palsy. He's able to move his right upper and right lower limb, but power in the left upper and left lower limb is 0. This is on the cath table. So in his initial CT scan, the aspect score was 10. We did an angiogram, CT angiogram, which showed an occlusion of the right middle cerebral artery. As you look closely, you can see leptomeningeal collaterals coming from the ACA territory. And the other CT is after recolization after thrombectomy. So this is the initial angiogram that we came across. You can see that there is occlusion of right middle cerebral artery. This is after the patient had 4 passes, in which the first 2 passes were simple aspiration. The clot was very sticky, it wouldn't come out. Then we used a combination technique of stent retriever as well as aspiration catheter known as Solumbra technique, and we were able to take the clot out on the 4th attempt. So this is the video after there is removal of the clot and complete reperfusion of the right middle cerebral artery, known as Tiki score 3. This is the picture of the actual clot which was taken out. And this is the video on the right. This is immediately post-op. The moment he underwent thrombectomy, we shifted the patient to neurocritical care, and you can see he can move his left upper and lower limb. And the other video, this is 3 days after, once he was shifted to the acute stroke unit, and you can see he is ambulant. The second case is going to be a female who had left M1 and M2 occlusion. She has a background history of mitral valve disease. She presented with 5.5 history of right sided weakness and slurring of speech. NHS score was 16 and she was VAN positive. So this is the video which was made by one of our residents while she was in the CT scanner. As you can see, there is no movement on the right side. Power is 0/5. She was taken to the cath lab, and the first angio we did, we saw that left middle cerebral artery, M1, was occluded. So we went in with an aspiration catheter and we did a first aspiration attempt, after which we were able to clear the trunk as well as the inferior division of the middle cerebral artery. But you can see the superior division of the middle cerebral artery is still occluded. The aspiration catheter that we usually use is 6 French, so it's very difficult to take them into M2. So what we did, we planned to go within a stent retriever and use both stent retriever as well as aspiration catheter to take out the clot. So this is the result after aspiration and stent retrieval combination approach. So this is the clot which was taken out. And this is on the right is the video of the patient immediately after thrombectomy. Once asked to narrate her name, she could not speak, but she was able to move the right upper and lower limb immediately. This is immediately after thrombectomy. And the video on, now I'm going to play, this is 1 day after thrombectomy, she can talk. And she is completely ambulant. Third case is going to be a case of basilar artery occlusion. Presently, the guidelines are not very clear regarding when to operate in a patient of basilar thrombosis. But since the mortality is very high, and especially if a patient comes very early in the therapeutic window, so we usually do offer treatment to them. And this patient, he initially presented with loss of consciousness and was admitted as a case of acute confusion state. So while in the ward, he certainly deteriorated and developed respiratory insufficiency and quadriparesis. One of our residents was doing the round and saw him. And interestingly, he intubated the patient in the ward and then shifted the patient immediately for an MRI examination because we were not clear what the patient had. So once we did an MRI, there was a hypertensity in the pons, which was present on DWI, but there was no hypertensity on the flare. So he had a flare diffusion mismatch. And once I saw the patient was locked in. He had GCS of 5/15, and the only movement he had was upward and downward movement of the eyes. And we did a CTA urgently to confirm. And interestingly, the CTA showed stenosis of the basal artery because there was retrograde flow from both PCOMs. So in CTA, we could not make out whether there is actual thrombosis or an occlusion or a stenosis. So we took the patient to the cath lab, and this is the angiogram we did. On the left is a static image, on the right is a running image. You can see we have injected the blood to the left vertebral artery. There is basilar occlusion, and it came down from the right vertebral artery. So this is the procedure which was performed. The aspiration catheter was taken up to the basilar, and then through the microcatheter, solitaire stent retriever was deployed. And then I'll show you lively how it's done. So right now, the stent retriever is being deployed. The microcatheter was placed in the right PCA. And this technique is known as SAFE technique, in which we deploy the stent retriever in a way that 2/3 is in front of the clot and 1/3 is behind. And once the stent retriever is deployed, we usually give a push towards the end. Right now, I'm giving this push. And then what I'll do, I'll take the aspiration catheter and I'll take it up to the mouth of the clot so that I grab the clot between the stent retriever and the aspiration catheter. So now after the stent retriever has been deployed, I'm going to take the catheter up now. As you can see, the aspiration catheter can go up to the basilar, even up to the PCA. I'm taking it up. Now I've grabbed the clot. Now I'm going to bring everything together as one unit. And I'm going to withdraw the whole thing. This is known as SAFE technique, one of the techniques of Salumra. And this is the video of the angio immediately after. And you see the blood won't come back into the vertebra, it's going and perfusing both the superior cerebral arteries. Both the posterior cerebral arteries, they were being supplied by PCOMs. That's why there was confusion on CTA, whether there was stenosis or thrombosis. And this is the patient remained on ventilator for about a week and then was extubated. And still, this video was made when the patient was in the ITC. He still has weakness of the right side of the face and right hemiparesis, but he's no more locked in. He's responding and he's moving all limbs. The very same patient came for follow-up after about 3 months, and he walked into my clinic with very less disability. The fourth case is going to be a case of a tandem lesion in which there is a left ICA and an MCA occlusion simultaneously. So this 60-year-old male presented with the right hemiplegia and aphasia of 5 hours duration. His NHS was 20 and was band positive. He had global aphasia. CT brain was normal, aspect score was 10, which made it an ideal candidate for intervention. So once we took him into the CAT suite, we found out that the left ICA is completely occluded. All the flow is going into the external carotid artery. Then we crossed the lesion with the help of a micro catheter and a micro wire, and then we took the aspiration catheter and the sheath through the stenosis into the proximal part of the ICA, and we did another run which showed that there was an ICA T occlusion. There was no flow behind beyond a supraclinite part of internal carotid artery. So initially we did an aspiration thrombectomy in which we were able to clear the T thrombus, and we could see there's reperfusion of the of both ACAs, and there's occlusion of left middle cerebral artery. This is the live video. We'll be able to see there's occlusion of left middle cerebral artery. Then subsequently, we went into the left middle cerebral artery, and we just with the help of suction aspiration, we took out the clot, and there is complete TK score 3 of both ACAs and MCAs. Thereafter, we came down, and then we decided what to do about this lesion. Since the sheath was in place for about 30 minutes, so that gave us some effect, and but the lesion was unstable. I waited for about 20 minutes and it started closing in front of me. So we decided to go for stenting of the left ICA. This is a picture of the embolic protection device that has been deployed. And thereafter, we'll be doing the angioplasty of left ICA to open up the occlusive site of the left ICA. You'll see the balloon inflating just now. So this is the angioplasty being done. Subsequently, we deployed the stent after the angioplasty. So this one is going to show that the stent is right at the place of the occlusion. And then we capture, after the stent is deployed, we capture the embolic protection device. And this is the final result of the occlusion. There's hardly any stenosis left as we compare the diameter from the lesion to distal ICA. And this is the final outcome of the thrombectomy, in which we did a stenting, and this is the TK score 3. This is the video of the patient 3 months afterwards, and you can see he's totally ambulant with slight facial deviation. Other than that, he's completely ambulant. So my fifth case is going to be a case of an extensive CVST. This young male, he presented with headache and vomiting, 2 days duration, and altered mental state of 1 day. Once he was brought to us, he had GCS of 14/15. So CT brain showed right parietal-temporal hemorrhage, and CTV was suggestive of extensive CVST, starting from the superior sagittal into the confluence and bilateral transference and sigmoid sinuses. So we started him on anticoagulation. 2 days afterwards, there was a sudden drop of GCS, and the patient GCS came down to 10/15, and he developed left hemiplegia. This is the initial CT scan of the patient. You can see the parietal occipital venous hemorrhage. This is the initial angiogram. You can see that none of the sinuses are being opacified. The blood is being taken down from the deep veins as well as anteriorly from the external jugular system. So took the microcatheter up to the superior sagittal sinus. You can see the aspiration catheter proximally in the posterior part of superior sagittal sinus. And once we go there, we usually infiltrate TPA. And I usually do it in increments of 2.5 milligram. And we start distally, and then we slowly come proximally. So I'll just show you a video of how it looks like from the microcatheter. And this is immediately after TPA that we gave in the anterior part of superior sagittal sinus. This was in the middle part of superior sagittal sinus. And then this is in the posterior part of superior sagittal sinus. Similarly, we came down into the confluence, into the sigmoid, into the transverse sigmoid and down to the internal jugular. So our plan was to just create one channel for the blood to flow, and we did not want to open the channel in which there was bleed because of involvement of vena flavi, because there was a theoretical risk of worsening of hemorrhage. And this is immediately post thrombolysis. And this technique has been taught by Dr. Dan Qureshi. So what he usually does is that he takes the microcatheter back into the superior sagittal sinus and connects the microcatheter to the continuous infusion pump, which has TPA. And we give TPA at the rate of 1 to 2 milligram per hour. And we repeat angiograms at 12-hour interval. The moment we feel that the sinuses are fully patent and there isn't any evidence of thrombosis anymore, we take out the microcatheter. So this is the run which was done 12 hours after TPA infusion. You will be able to, this is the arterial phase. And this is the venous phase. You can see the outline of superior sagittal, the sigmoid, transverse, and internal jugular vein. The patient had a really good outcome. Initially, he was intubated, remained in ITC for about a week, and then in a prolonged stay in our ward for about a month. This picture is after 1 month of inpatient management. He's still following me on regular basis in OPD. So this sixth case is going to be a case of mechanical thrombectomy in which we'll be using an extended window. In last 4 cases we discussed, they all came in within 6 hours. So in extended window, after the diffuse 3 trial and Dawn trial, we can extend the window up to 24 hours. So this young male, he had left-sided weakness and he came from KPK and he had 18 hours history of weakness. The power on the left was 0/5, NHS score was 20. So this is the initial CT, which gave a suspicion of an aspect of 5. So we were confused whether to intervene or not. So once we did CT perfusion, which was very, very encouraging, as you can see the mean transit time, you can see evident penumbra. And the cerebral blood flow is reduced, but not as compared to cerebral blood volume. So we did a mechanical thrombectomy on this patient. And this is 3 days after thrombectomy. And you can see he's moving the right upper and lower limb. This thrombectomy was done 18 hours after presentation. And my last case is going to be a case of left ICA dissection and MC occlusion. This 58 years male. He is a dental surgeon by profession. A professor, works in KPK. He was brought to us with his wife, who's also a physician. And she came to know about our center and she drove herself to our center. And she came around 10 at night. And on presentation, he had right hemiplegia and motor aphasia. NHS score was 23. He was man positive. Power on the right was 0/5. So we did initial CT scan. CT scan was very encouraging. He had aspect of 8. We did a CT angio, which was suggestive of a large vessel occlusion, left MCA occlusion. But there was suspicion of left ICA dissection. We were not sure on CTA. So once we did the initial run, we found out that there's dissection of left internal carotid artery. You can see the dissection on this video once I play it. So this is the dissection extending from the ICA into the petrocavernous into the suprachiasmatic area. So we crossed the dissection and we did a thrombectomy of the left ICA. We were able to clear the T as well as the right A1. And we found out that there is an M1 occlusion. And I'll show you the video. So this is the actual image. And then we did an aspiration thrombectomy of left MCA as well. So we were able to reperfuse the MCA territory, but we had to do something about the dissection because it was flow limiting. So this is a static image of this 3 carotid stent that we placed, started from the petrocavernous junction onto the common carotid artery. And this is the final outcome of the patient with complete recanalization of the MCA ACA territory and complete flow into the left ICA. So this is the message that was told to play this video for the audience. So I'm going to play it.
The same kind of same waste instead of 2018, I was trying to contact the hospitals divided into the diagram from the city Institute of Cardiology है, दूसरा मिलिट्री हॉस्पिटल रावलपिंडी। मेरा कॉन्टैक्ट फॉर्चुनेटली वहाँ पे मिलिट्री हॉस्पिटल वालों के साथ हो गया एंड दे वर वेरी हेल्पफुल। दे गाइडेड मी कि आप जैसे ही पहुँचेंगे वी विल बी देयर, और उन्होंने बड़ा विजिलेंटली हमें रिसीव किया। उसी टाइम पे इन्होंने इनके इन्वेस्टिगेशंस, इनके CT scans, एवरीथिंग वाज डन विद इन मिनट्स and he was shifted to cath lab over there. वहाँ पे उनका the thrombectomy was done and with carotid stenting, क्योंकि उस टाइम पता चला कि he had bilateral carotid dissection also. जिस साइड पे thrombectomy हुई थी उसी साइड पे carotid stenting की गई। Procedure was success और हमें by third day he was able